I stood at the edge of the driveway, staring at the old mansion that had been my childhood home. The years had not been kind to it. The once grand facade was now weathered and grim, cloaked in shadows cast by the encroaching woods that surrounded it. The towering trees seemed to lean in, as if eager to swallow the house whole. A chill breeze rustled the leaves, whispering secrets I had long tried to forget. I hadn't been back here in over a decade, not since my parents and I had parted ways under strange circumstances. Now, with their passing, the house was mine, though it felt more like a curse than an inheritance. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around and leave, but duty and curiosity propelled me forward. As I approached the front door, memories flooded back, unwanted, unsettling memories. As a child, I'd always felt uneasy here, convinced that something sinister lurked in the shadows. I remember the nights when I would lie awake, paralyzed with fear, convinced that a shadowy figure was watching me from the corner of my room. My parents had laughed it off, dismissing it as the figment of an overactive imagination. But the fear was real, a constant companion that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. I stepped inside, and the musty air clung to my skin, as if trying to pull me into the past. The interior was eerily silent, each footstep echoing through the empty halls. I paused, the weight of the house pressing down on me. The familiar creak of the floorboards was like the voice of an old friend, albeit one I had no desire to meet again. As I moved from room to room, the memories came faster. Each shadow seemed to hold a story, a whisper of something forgotten. In the dim light, I could almost see the specter of my younger self, wide-eyed and trembling, convinced that every corner hid a monster. Dismissing these thoughts as remnants of childhood imagination, I tried to focus on the task at hand, sorting through the remnants of my parents' lives. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, the unsettling awareness that I was not alone. The shadows lengthened as the days slipped into evening, and the house seemed to come alive with the night. I shivered, feeling the walls close in, and with them, the overwhelming sense of dread I had hoped to leave behind. In that moment, I realized that the fear I had felt as a child was not just a trick of the mind. It was a warning, a premonition that something beyond my understanding lay in wait within these walls. And now, I was back, with nowhere to run, and nothing but darkness to greet me. The first few days in the house were eerily quiet, but soon the silence became pregnant with something sinister. It started small, little things I could almost explain away. A chair slightly out of place, a door creaking open when I was sure I had closed it. I chalked it up to drafts in my own distracted state of mind, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. The nights were the worst. When the darkness fell, the house seemed to breathe around me, its walls shifting and sighing in ways that made my skin crawl. As I lay in bed, I would hear whispers just beyond the edge of hearing, words I couldn't quite catch, but which filled me with an inexplicable dread. The shadows seemed to take on a life of their own, moving with a fluidity that defied logic. I would catch fleeting glimpses of them darting through the hallways, almost as if they were playing some twisted game with me. And always, there was that same feeling of being watched, as though unseen eyes tracked my every move. Then came the night of the first true encounter. I had finally fallen into a fitful sleep when I was jerked awake by the unmistakable sensation of cold fingers brushing against my cheek. I froze, my breath caught in my throat, heart pounding as I forced my eyes open. There it stood at the foot of my bed, a towering figure, cloaked in darkness. Its form was indistinct, a mass of shadows that seemed to absorb the feeble light of the room. Its eyes, however, burned with a malevolent intensity, pinning me in place with their gaze. Terror coursed through me, a primal fear that screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move, couldn't even scream. The air was heavy with its presence, thick with a malice that seeped into my bones. Just as I found my voice, it vanished, dissolving into the shadows with a fluid grace that left the room feeling even colder than before. I sat up, gasping for air, my mind racing with questions and the lingering chill of its touch. Sleep was impossible after that. Every creak of the house sent my heart racing, every shadow seemed to pulse with menace. Desperate for answers, I turned to the only place I could think of, the past. I spent hours digging through the dusty attic, sifting through forgotten boxes and papers. It was there, amid the cobwebs and dust, that I found the journals and letters. They told a story of my ancestors, of secrets buried and deals made in darkness. It became clear that my family had been marked by something beyond comprehension, a shadowy presence that had haunted our bloodline for generations. The creature was no figment of my childhood imagination. It was a guardian, but of what, I still couldn't understand. As I read, a sense of dread settled over me, heavier than any I'd felt before. The answers I sought were not comforting. They were the stuff of nightmares, a reminder that the house and its shadows held secrets darker than I had ever imagined. And I was trapped in the middle of it, with the creature's ominous presence lurking just beyond the edge of the light, waiting for a moment I feared might come all too soon. Days turned into a blur of fear and confusion. Each night, the creature returned, lurking in the shadows, its presence a constant reminder that I was never truly alone. With each encounter, I felt my grip on reality slipping, my mind fraying at the edges as paranoia crept in like a noxious fog. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside sent my heart racing, convincing me that the creature was watching, waiting for some unseen cue to strike. I found myself jumping at shadows, my nerves stretched taut as I questioned everything I thought I knew. Was it all in my head? Or was the creature something more than I could comprehend? I began to notice a pattern. The creature seemed to appear when I was at my most vulnerable, moments of distress or danger when my defenses were weakest. It was as if it was drawn to my fear, feeding off my terror. But there was something more, a hint of something protective in its behavior, a strange reluctance in the way it watched me. In desperation, I sought answers outside the suffocating walls of the mansion. I ventured into town, hoping that distance would clear my head, but instead, I found a new layer of mystery. A chance encounter with an old man in a dusty bookstore set my mind reeling. He spoke in riddles, his eyes clouded with age and knowledge, warning me of a threat greater than the creature that haunted my nights. "The shadows are not what they seem," he murmured, his voice a raspy whisper. "Beware of the darkness closer to home. Not all who wander are lost, but some are searching for what should never be found." His words clung to me, a haunting echo that only deepened my paranoia. What was he trying to tell me? That the creature wasn't my enemy, but a protector? And if so, what was it protecting me from? That night, driven to the brink of madness, I decided to confront the creature once and for all. I waited in the darkness, my heart pounding like a war drum as I felt its presence fill the room, a heavy, oppressive weight that pressed down on my chest. The air crackled with tension as I forced myself to speak, my voice trembling with fear and determination. "Why are you haunting me?" I demanded, the words barely a whisper in the heavy silence. "What do you want?" For a moment, the creature remained silent, its form shifting and swirling like a living shadow. Then, to my astonishment, it spoke, not in words, but in emotions, images flashing through my mind with a clarity that left me breathless. Memories that weren't mine flooded my thoughts, glimpses of a pact made in desperation, of a guardian sworn to protect a bloodline from an unspeakable evil. The creature wasn't my enemy, it was a sentinel, bound to my family by a promise forged in fear and necessity. As understanding dawned, so did a new terror. If the creature was my protector, then what was it protecting me from? The darkness that loomed was deeper and more malevolent than I had imagined, and I realized with a chilling certainty that my true enemy was yet to be revealed. The revelation left me shaken, my mind teetering on the edge of madness. But in that moment of clarity, I knew one thing for certain: I had to uncover the truth, no matter where it led me, or what it might cost. The revelation that the creature was my protector rather than my enemy was difficult to accept, but the signs were undeniable. The creature, the shadowy figure that haunted my nights, was somehow tied to the fate of my family. The weight of this realization settled over me like a shroud, and I knew I had to understand more. One night, when the house was wrapped in a cloak of silence and darkness, I sat in my room, waiting for the creature to appear. My heart thudded in my chest, a relentless rhythm of fear and anticipation. When it finally materialized, its form was less intimidating than before, though no less awe-inspiring. I reached out with my mind, focusing on the emotions and thoughts I wanted to convey. The creature responded, and for the first time, I felt a true connection, a bridge forming between our disparate existences. Suddenly, my mind was flooded with images and sensations not my own. I was plunged into a series of flashbacks, each one more vivid than the last. I saw my ancestor, a man driven by ambition and greed, making a pact with a dark spirit, exchanging his soul for power. But when he tried to cheat the spirit, it cursed our bloodline, vowing to possess his descendants until the debt was paid. In a desperate bid to save his family, my ancestor sought out a guardian, a creature of shadows bound by honor to protect us from the spirit's wrath. The creature had watched over us for generations, its terrifying visage a necessary facade to ward off the evil that sought to consume us. I felt the terror of those who had come before me, their struggle to reconcile with the fear of the unknown. I witnessed their moments of despair and hope, their understanding of the creature's true purpose, which had eluded me until now. As the visions faded, I found myself back in my room, breathless and shaken. The creature hovered nearby, a silent sentinel awaiting my reaction. For the first time, I looked at it without fear, seeing past the darkness to the light of its true nature. The creature had intervened countless times, guiding me away from unseen dangers, its presence a shield against the malevolent spirit's attempts to draw me in. Every time it had appeared, it had been a warning, a call to action to uncover the truth that lay buried beneath years of deception. I understood now that the creature's actions, though terrifying, had been for my own good. Its haunting appearances had been a cry for awareness, urging me to confront the darkness that threatened to consume not just me, but the legacy of my family. Armed with this knowledge, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The creature and I were bound by a shared purpose, a mutual understanding forged in the crucible of fear and revelation. I knew that together, we could face the challenges ahead, unraveling the mystery of our family's past and breaking the cycle of possession and deceit that had haunted us for generations. With this newfound alliance, I felt a strength I hadn't known before, a resolve to face whatever lay ahead with courage and determination. The truth, unveiled at last, was my weapon against the darkness, and with it, I would forge a new path for myself and those who would come after me. The days following my revelations with the creature were a blur of preparation and reflection. The knowledge of my family's dark past, coupled with the understanding of the creature's true nature, had given me the courage to face the malevolent spirit that threatened my soul. But the path ahead was fraught with danger, and I knew that confronting the spirit would be the ultimate test. With the creature's guidance, I pieced together the clues from the journals and letters, unearthing a ritual that could sever the spirit's hold on my bloodline. It required confronting the spirit on its own terms, in the very heart of the mansion where the pact had been made. The night of the confrontation was cold and silent, the air heavy with anticipation. I stood in the grand hall, the house a labyrinth of shadows around me, my heart pounding in my chest as I prepared for what lay ahead. The creature was by my side, its presence a comforting reassurance as I summoned the courage to face the darkness. As I began the ritual, the atmosphere shifted, the temperature dropping as a chilling wind swept through the room. The shadows coalesced, forming a vortex of malice and rage, a manifestation of the vengeful spirit that had haunted my family for generations. Its voice was a cacophony of anger, echoing through my mind, attempting to break my resolve. But I was no longer afraid. Armed with the truth and the creature's steadfast support, I stood firm, reciting the incantations with a strength I hadn't known I possessed. The spirit writhed and howled, its fury palpable, but slowly, inexorably, the power of the ritual took hold. The creature moved beside me, its energy merging with mine, forming a barrier against the spirit's attempts to lash out. Together, we pushed back against the darkness, our wills entwined in a desperate battle for freedom and redemption. Finally, with a final surge of determination, I completed the ritual, channeling the energy of my ancestors to banish the spirit once and for all. The shadows exploded in a burst of light, the spirit's scream fading into nothingness as it was cast out, leaving the mansion eerily quiet once more. In the aftermath, I stood there, breathing heavily, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away. The creature remained, its form less intimidating, more an ally than ever before. We had faced the true enemy together and emerged victorious, our bond forged in the crucible of fear and necessity. As I settled back into life at the mansion, a sense of peace descended upon me, a haunting peace, born of understanding and acceptance. The creature was still with me, a silent guardian watching over me, its presence no longer a source of terror but of comfort. I reflected on the thin line between fear and protection. The shadows that had once been my greatest fear are now a reminder of the power of the unknown. The experience had altered me irrevocably, opening my eyes to the complexities of my lineage and the strength within myself. I embraced the unknown, acknowledging the creature as my protector, and in doing so, I found a new kind of freedom. The mansion, once a place of dread, had become my sanctuary, a testament to the courage it took to face the darkness and emerge into the light. And as I walked through the halls, I knew that whatever the future held, I would face it with the knowledge that the shadows could no longer harm me. For I had made peace with the creature, and with the darkness that had once haunted my every step.